Nicholas, we have your slide up. Very good.
Great, and it's correct too.
What is MSC?
So what do we do? So we are the Media Solutions Center, and we're responsible for all the content that goes onto the Samsung devices, whether it's mobile phones, tablets, or TVs.
Oh, it's different. The very nature of your team, you guys aren't broadcasters. So you see content being key to driving the adoption and innovation for your portfolio of products.
Well, actually, let me pick up on some of the previous conversations that you had on the panel, because there were a lot of good threads there that kind of relate to Samsung and what we do. But you know, if we have to take a page, how we see the landscape in sports is actually, there's sort of a couple of cautionary tales. And I guess I would point to the music industry as being a good example of that. So let's sort of rewind 10 years and see what's happened in the music industry. But you know, the music industry rights potentially were initially owned by the labels and by the different content providers and the artists. And over the course of the last 10 years, because of the advancements in distribution, and because now, today, the consumer's in charge, right? The labels are no longer in charge. It's actually the consumer's in charge. And distribution has provided them with a whole new set of you know, much more liberal rights and access to content. And we've now pushed content directly to them. So how has the industry responded in the music business? They've responded by saying, guess what? It's very, very hard for us to sell a pure play. It's very, very hard, with the exception of a few companies, by the way, who are not making money. So if you, for example, look at Spotify, Pandora, for example, those companies are actually providing pure music services. But look who is actually, now if you take an example of the people who are truly funding and driving the music business, it's not pure plays. It's Apple, it's Samsung, it's Amazon, it's the telcos. So they're actually taking music content and they're bundling it with a data package or with a nice Samsung S6, or they're bundling it with a free shipping service. So that should send flares up to the sports industry in terms of saying, for example, you know, how do we adjust to this new content paradigm? And how do we respond? Because I think everyone's very, very quick to go OTT, and I certainly think there are some, you know, some advantages, and certainly at Samsung we participate actively in that space. But there's also room for thoughtful, steady heads in this environment, and being very smart so that you don't want to relive that. I've relived the music industry over the past 10 years, and I think we don't want that to happen in the sports industry.
No one really seems to be as afraid as it took years for the music industry changes to really grab a hold. The sports industry, I believe that sports, the best screen approach works. The best screen approach is where I think you guys really bring this to the light, which is wherever, whenever you want to connect with your sports, Samsung will deliver you an experience that you can actually enjoy at any time, and you can even move screen to screen.
Well, there's a couple of things. The first is that I think what we've learned about the sports, what we've been learning over the last couple of years, and this is our second anniversary. Our logo is somewhere here, Sports Flow. So we've been at this now for 2 years and have a fair amount of information and data. We have a very large customer base, active sports fans. So there's a couple of things. And we also participate on every screen. So we participate on TV, we participate on mobile, tablet, and also recently the watch. A couple of things. The first is that there's definitely a noticeable trend towards bite-sized content, snackable content. And I would ask you guys to go out there. You can actually have a fairly satisfactory sports experience without watching live TV. It's a different experience, but it's actually fairly satisfactory. So imagine now you're receiving Twitter feeds, right? You're posting on Facebook, you're chatting with a friend. At the end of the game, I don't want to have to spend an hour and a half watching the full game. In fact, I'm going to go to YouTube at the end of the game, and I'm going to watch 90 seconds and basically see the 3 goals that I want to see. or the foul that should never have happened, right? So what's happening is that if you look at our generation and you look at kind of the new, they're no longer as patient as we were. Now, I still love sitting back. I'm happy to dedicate 3.5 hours to the Wimbledon final, but that's really about it. There's very rare now that I'm able to sit down where I can dedicate 2 hours to watching a full EPL game. I'll watch snackable size pieces. In fact, my son, who is an avid football fan, we go on YouTube and he looks at Messi videos for 3 minutes and then moves on. He's not prepared to watch the full game. So what does that mean for Samsung? So what it means for Samsung is that we have to be ahead. We have to be on the bleeding edge, and we have to kind of be where the consumers are going to be in a few years. So we think of this as, in a very different way. If you look at sports flow, most of our content is snackable small sizes. We aggregate 150 content partners from around the world and give, discrete, tight little articles. Generally the headlines, people will consume the headlines. They'll see the key pieces of information they want, and then they're going to check the score and they're out. And they've got their next thing, because we've all got condensed, very dense lives. So I think that's one of the big observations, this concept of very snackable, short-form content.
But as you said, that 3.5 hour final, I was very happy for the rain delay, but that's something I would dedicate my time to. I think there's a room for on-the-go, snackable, catch-up, almost simultaneous goals and highlights, but also for select live events, because live, you just can't beat it sometimes.
Okay, so another great point which sort of ties into, there is nothing like a live event, admittedly, and it's depressing to see Federer, now is he 35 and 34 and really and second in the world and still not able to crack that Djokovic game. He's just so tough. But I would say that in terms of a live event, right now, I think what's the difference that we've also seen in the sports business is if you rewind sort of when we grew up, we probably had 2 or 3 teams. You're a New York guy, right? So you're a Giants fan or a Yankees fan, Mets?
Hard luck teams, always
okay.
Hard luck teams.
But if you look at those, we probably followed two or three teams. If you think back to your childhood, maybe you're a 49ers fan or a Liverpool fan. I was a QPR fan.
In black and white.
Yeah, in black and white. Now think about how many teams you follow today, right? Think about that. So I probably actively follow about 10 to 20 different either sports events or teams. I actually love the Tour de France. But am I prepared to watch 4 or 5 hours of bicycle content and prepared to commit, 2 weeks to the event? I'm absolutely not going to do it. Now, right, so I think that so right now there's just not enough, there's just simply not enough broadcast spectrum to be able to deliver all that content. And the consumer today is saying, I'm no longer satisfied just getting one league. I have 20 bad habits because I also happen to be a La Liga fan. I'm a Serie A fan, and I just found out, about the new volleyball. And gosh, I'd love to see people in volleyball. There's, cute girls in volleyball playing in the sand. So there's so many different things that people want to follow right now. And so I think that really speaks to being OTT and delivering on all, having multiple OTT channels to be able to deliver all your smatterings of different interests. The reality is that a single broadcaster will not be able to do that. You simply can't satisfy all those different kinds of interests. Hence, that's the advent of OTT. And
also that we need to think about content differently. It's not, the innovation is happening across the board, not just in how we do content, how we do rights, but in distribution and platform strategies. So you're very much a lean forward on digital kind of a guy. What is it that you're working on right now that you think is something that's truly innovative, something that's setting your days going? Because when you go into the office, you guys are doing some interesting projects in the region.
Good. So I'll comment on that, but I want to make one comment about interesting distribution because, again, it was sort of this is a thread from your previous conversation. But I am lean forward. I'm always pushing the boundaries. But I think it's interesting about OTT. I'll just make a comment on the previous conversation. If you think about OTT right now, it's sort of the new biggest thing. It's that the part of the bell curve where everyone's getting super excited and reality will soon set in. So I kind of think about my job is to think not about today. My job is to think 3 or 4 years out. Here's the challenge, guys. The challenge is everyone wants to be OTT and everyone wants to basically offer their service direct to the customer, okay? We talked about our 20 bad habits, right? So let's say your 20 bad habits are NFL, NBA, La Liga, Serie A, Liverpool, the Tour de France.
Formula One.
You know, imagine that each of those are you're passionate about or you have some interest level. And imagine that each of them is going to offer you a super discount price, right, of $1.99, okay? So I've just said now what I've done is I've taken those 20 or 10 different passion things and I'm now charging $2 for each one of them. That's $20. Mm-hmm. Okay, what does ESPN charge today in the United States? $5 to $6? So let's talk about that model for a second. So it's a very interesting model. Before we throw out, I agree that OTT is here. I agree that OTT is going to be the natural form of distribution. I think the business model, though, has to be re-examined because the current business model is actually really satisfactory. If you think about it, I happen to be a big sports fan. Now, I get sports fan when I pay $90, by the way, for my cable bill in the United States, or I live in Singapore, but if I were in the United States, I'd pay $90 or Singtel here. I'm actually getting the tennis channel as part of that. Now, if I bought the tennis channel alone, I would probably be spending somewhere around $14 for the tennis channel. Whereas, as part of that bundle, I can get it for, you know, for that $90. Now, you may be an outdoors guy. You're an outdoor fan, so you paid $14.99 for the outdoor channel. I have no interest in the outdoor channel. So what is the current model that's happening right now with the aggregators? The aggregators are allowing us to subsidize each other's bad habits. I'll tell you what, you pay for yours, I'll pay for mine. How does that sound? Okay? So when we start thinking about OTT, it's going to happen, distribution, certainly Samsung's leaned forward, we're going to be involved in it. But we also have to recognize that the current model should not be thrown out so quickly. There are advantages to being able to say, let's take an aggregator who can spread that cost of the tennis channel across 100,000 or 100 million people as opposed to the 74,000 people who happen to be avid tennis fans. So that's just one point I wanted to make just in relation to that. Your next question was, what are we doing that's interesting? So, you know, as Maurizio had previously said on our panel, we've been very innovative in terms of how we've looked at devices. One of the things that I'm really excited about is our VR. So VR, trendy term, we all read about, oh, virtual reality, you know, it's here. For those of you that haven't experienced it, give it a try. Right now in the United States, you can buy a
VR beach volleyball.
There you go. Right now in the United States, you can buy a VR headset for $199, right? And then you elegantly slide your S6 into the front panel in front of it. If you happen to take in the experience, it is absolutely breathtaking. You can move around the room like this, you can look up, you can be in Venice, you can be on top of the Eiffel Tower, or you can be at a sporting event. And it is completely immersive. You look down and you can be dizzy. You can actually watch, you can watch a movie, and then you can look over here and I could see my friends, right? To the left and to the right, right? So imagine now taking that into the sports arena. Imagine being able to say, I actually want to watch a Liverpool match, not in front of my TV, but with all my Liverpool friends. So I think VR, I think the really exciting part of VR is going to be how do we take that immersive experience, have a social, because sports is hugely social. Now marry virtual reality with social and have a virtual sports event using VR. And by the way, if you test it out, it's reality. Last, again, credit to our team, the sports team and Maurizio, but we actually, we worked with a guy called Mark Matthews, who is a big wave surfer. He took one of these 3D virtual realities into one of his big waves. He has a big stick like this, and then he holds it up. I don't know if you've done it, James, but it's pretty cool. And you can actually be inside the big wave with him. So it is here, it's happening, and it's a very, very powerful experience.
Excellent. I wish you luck with your ventures. Look for new products coming out from the Samsung Media team. Nicholas, it's always good to see you.
Great, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.